All right. Well, hello, everyone. It's that time of year, I guess, where it's tough for people to make it. And it's just me, myself, and I. But I did promise some people that I would record this. So here I am recording it. And yeah, so I have been having the final wrap-up meetings with other AST2 groups this week. And so I'll just kind of go over a few themes that we've been covering, and I hope that that's helpful for you. First of all, just say that you bastards, nobody's here. No, I'm just kidding. It's fine, uh, uh, it's been I've been getting really good feedback on these, season-long courses, and so I will continue it. So don't worry that you've wrecked it now for everybody in the future. Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm giving you guys a little bit of a hard time, but it's good. And yeah, it's just that thing where I've obviously been teaching for a long time, and I see what happens for students when they're doing this for 4 days or whatever, and and they get really engaged and really dialed to the processes, daily process being the main one, but the process of choosing terrain, based on conditions and that sort of thing. So but then I've followed up with people 3 weeks, 4 weeks afterward, and yeah, that not that it's all gone, but that yeah, it's hard to maintain that kind of intimacy with the learning, and so people seem to be digging the season-long thing, and so we'll continue that. So one of the things that been asking people, and I'll kind of give you a moment if you're watching this to reflect on this question, is of all the avalanche accidents this year, and I'm thinking specifically of the fatalities just because they're the most publicized and prominent, but for you it might be hearing about an avalanche where there was a close call, whether you knew the people or not, but you heard about it. What avalanche, when you think back on this season, and you may have to do a little review, you can go to avalanche.ca and look at the map, and the black teardrops with the red circle in the middle are the fatalities, and there's a report on not all of them, but most of them. Which one, or outside of those fatalities, which one kind of hit you the hardest? Which one sort of maybe hit a little closer to home, maybe made you think like, geez, like this is tricky business and scary, and maybe it could have been me, and that kind of thing. And I think it's a valuable exercise in asking that, not to freak ourselves out so that we never ski again, but to just take stock and be realistic with our decision making. Because one thing that is sort of human is that when we make decisions and nothing happens, we think that we made a good decision. and obviously there's some truth to that, but it's possible, right? Like, we need to be at least open, and I'm going to talk about this a couple times. We need to be open to the possibility that actually we were like just skin of our teeth, through that slope. If we had gone 5 meters to the left on that slope, we would have triggered a devastating avalanche. And I'm not saying that any of us had that experience this year, but I think we always need to be open to it, and to that possibility, just like we need to be open to Mother Nature surprising us, right? Like this is really, as I spend more and more years doing avalanche education and skiing and avalanche terrain, I realize that although I learn every year, I learn from you guys, I learn from all these courses, and my own experiences. As I learn more, I kind of accept more that Mother Nature can kick my butt, and I've got the door open for that to happen any day I'm out there. I mean, obviously, if I'm skiing simple terrain, I'm not skiing big slopes, then it's pretty unlikely to impossible, for Mother Nature to bury me with a size 3 avalanche in that kind of terrain, unless there's, like overhead hazard way above, and maybe I'm skiing in the trees and some huge avalanche wipes out 50-year old trees or something, so that's pretty rare, and the kinds of places that we ski, at least here in the Roslyn range, that's generally impossible in a lot of our simple terrain. Why? Because we don't have stacked terrain. I've never used that term before, but stacked terrain where you've got simple terrain, above that's complex terrain, above that's what we got is what we got. And so generally when we go to simple terrain, that's all we got to worry about. You go to a place like Rogers Pass, and even when you're skiing simple terrain, when you look at the maps, it's like, yeah, there's complex terrain way above you, and in the event of a 50-year avalanche, that happens once every 50 years kind of thing, you might be in a spot where you're dangerous. So in any case, what I'm saying, back to the point after I got on this tangent of talking about overhead hazard, is I always have the door open for Mother Nature to come in and surprise me. And I think that's just a really important place to be. One, because what am I trying to say? It just helps us to then be better prepared and thinking as we're riding in terrain. It doesn't mean that we don't go into terrain with confidence. That's what the daily process is for, right? The daily process is meant to do two things, basically. One, to keep us safe, right? To keep us out of dangerous places in the wrong conditions. And two, though, is to give us confidence to go into avalanche terrain under the right conditions, and to have confidence that we're going when the conditions are appropriate. It doesn't mean that the risk is zero. The risk is really never zero when we're talking about avalanches. And that's what I mean. Keep the door open. There's always some risk. So we always keep our guard up a little bit, but sometimes, we can step into terrain with confidence. So it's like finding that balance. That's kind of the key. So with regards to this year and dealing with the deep persistent slab issue that really was present during almost the whole season, even though there were times when it wasn't listed as a problem in the avalanche bulletin because of bridging, it's still somewhere in the back of our mind. How do we manage our terrain selection? And so I did provide you with a link to that article, which is a really good article. That article is great about bridging and the deep persistent slab issue. And I'll just play this video just to give some perspective on the season, right? So I think during the time that, we've been meeting almost the whole time, as well as, the field days that we had together, we were very aware of that problem. And even when the avalanche danger went to moderate, we were still aware of the problem. And even though we were maybe stepping into avalanche terrain, remember, moderate danger means natural avalanche is unlikely. Good, yeah, like that. Human triggered avalanche is possible. So there's still a possibility. And so really, like pretty much from the beginning of the season until the middle of March, most guides, including myself, and most savvy recreationalists, were avoiding big committing avalanche terrain. Obviously, there were exceptions to that. Some people got away with things and some people didn't. But generally avoiding that kind of big terrain. So then what happened around middle of March? And so that's where I will just share this video. Where is it? This one? Might be this one. That's the avalanche bulletin. Okay, we'll talk afterward about the avalanche bulletin. I've never seen it actually like that. All right, so here's choosing bigger terrain.
The thing that's different about a Verbo vacation home, you always have to.
Hey, this is Keith Robine from Kootenai Avalanche Courses. It's March 28th, 2023. And the last time I did a video, we were more in the middle of winter, and now we're getting toward the end of March and things are changing. How are they changing? Well, obviously things are getting more spring-like, but we had minus 20 last night. So winter can still do its thing and keep the snow good, particularly on those more northerly aspects, which is what we just skied here. And just wanted to talk a little bit about earlier in the winter. It's been a winter for being patient. And it's one of the things that we talk about in terms of human behaviors that helps us stay safe in the backcountry. And yeah, patience has kind of been the name of the game. And, we were just saying, wow, we just can't imagine that we'd be skiing lines like this later in the season. But sure enough, we just had to wait. And, we've got a pretty good snowpack here. We're in the Selkirks. We've got close to 3 meters. And, the danger of a deep layer release isn't completely gone, but it's so much less now that the avalanche bulletin is down to moderate, low in the 3 different elevation bands. And so it's really only in the last week or 2 that we've started to step cautiously into bigger terrain. And we've pretty much avoided all of this terrain the whole winter. And how are we doing it? Well, just like any other day, we're using the daily process. We got the forecast, which, as I said, is moderate, low. We planned, where are we going to go today? We're avoiding areas which is more shallow areas. That's where the avalanche problem is, the potential deep layer. We're avoiding that kind of stuff. We got the right gear. We're verifying conditions by, having the visibility of a day like this to do this kind of a tour. You want to be able to see, you want to be able to notice, do I see signs of other avalanches? And that's been a green light check for us today. We're using good travel habits, spreading out where appropriate, and picking slopes where we feel like we can, obviously step into bigger terrain, but also think about where's our escapes, where's the high ground. And right now we're up on a little bit of a high ground feature, not totally safe, but safer than if we were down in a gully. So, hopefully that's helpful to be thinking about how the snowpack changes over a season. It's been a challenging year, but also a good year. There's been lots of great powder, and I don't know, we had 7 overnight, 20 over the last few days, minus 20 last night. It's a very nice skiing.
keep going. Yeah, very nice skiing. And, I love all kinds of skiing. Skiing in the trees, skiing more mellow stuff, skiing little slopes of avalanche terrain, and then occasionally stepping into, stuff like you just saw where it's big and beautiful. So, yeah, there's times to do that typically every year. So let's talk, briefly about the current conditions. You can see that there's a special public avalanche warning. Normally, the forecasters at this time of year are getting ready for the annual spring avalanche meetings, which are in Penticton next week, which I'm going to, and closing up shop. But this is right now the biggest warming that we've had all winter. So, they've been continuing the sharing of information with public, have a forecast, which, as you can see, is very red. It shouldn't be a big surprise that the big avalanche problem is the deep persistent slab that, hasn't been super active, except in, really shallow snowpack areas like the Rockies, but the possibility that it can potentially wake up across all of Western Canada. You can see here, all of this area is like that. There's just these layers of facets near the base of the snowpack that sometimes when we get really warm temperatures can wake up. And I don't know if, these next couple, 3 days are going to do that or not. But there's certainly that possibility. And so it's just worth, making sure to get that word out and hopefully avoid any more fatalities, which is up to 15 now in Canada this winter. In the end, I would say backcountry travelers have been pretty savvy overall. Certainly not the easiest snowpack to manage, but most people have done it very safely. And 15 is a little bit higher than the average over the last 10 years, which is sitting, I think, somewhere around 12. But it's not, way above average. So I feel like, given the snowpack, that the overall approach by the backcountry population has been generally good, with obviously these unfortunate accidents that have taken a number of lives and impacted many, many people beyond that as well. Okay, so yeah, and cornices, obviously with the major warming, cornices can be a problem. And so, these are the kinds of avalanche problems that, cornices, loose, wet, that you see, with these kinds of warmer temperatures. So anyway, I mean, cornices are potentially a problem anytime, but this is just when they're heightened risk. Okay, so, oh, I think I stopped sharing. Sorry about that. You're just looking at me rather than looking at the avalanche forecast, but yeah, you can see that as well. Here, I'll pull it up here really quick. Yeah, so anyway, problems are cornices, wet, loose, and the deep persistent slab is problem number one. The danger is high across the board for the next 3 days, well, at least, while we're getting these really warm temperature. And as I said, the problem exists all across Western Canada because of the November issues, and combined with the much higher than average temperatures for this time of year. Okay. I think that's the main thing there. There have been, as I said, some recent fatalities. I will show one picture of last Saturday. So I guess it was about 5 days ago, sorry. And unfortunately, this is just outside of Lake Louise, the ski area. You can see the lift there. And you can see here how the tracks came in from the ski area. Obviously, there was a boundary rope keeping people out of this area. This area had been closed the whole winter. It's slack country. But obviously there's nothing slack about this terrain. It's pretty steep. And yeah, unfortunately, one person passed. They were not carrying backcountry gear. They just kind of slipped around from the ski area and, in search of some powder. So yeah, another tragic accident. But one of the things that we can learn is, the Rockies snowpack is often shallower than our snowpack. And as you might be able to tell, that is pretty shallow here, probably average about 60 centimeters. 60 centimeters for the whole snowpack, that's shallow. And so, you're not going to get a strong snowpack with it being that shallow. Basically, that snow is going to be pretty faceted, very crystally. And so they triggered this very large avalanche. So, yeah. So yes, and we've been talking about that. The name of the game, besides patience, has been to avoid shallow snowpack when dealing with these persistent weak layers. So yeah, I think that's probably good there. What else? There's one other thing that I just wanted to talk about. There was an avalanche maybe a couple weeks ago in the Roslyn Range. People heard about it, but it wasn't really talked about initially. There was no min, and it's not. This isn't meant to point fingers at anybody, but just to share in the human characteristic of not wanting to. Excuse me, not wanting to feel shame about our mistakes. And so sometimes when we do something and we get surprised by Mother Nature and we get in an avalanche, and this was not a really crazy choice of terrain. It was kind of a localized avalanche problem that probably the person didn't quite recognize, and they went for a pretty long ride, but weren't hurt. I think, I want to bring this up to help promote a culture of sharing, a culture of acceptance for, mainly ourselves. And I mean, that's so much easier said than done. I totally realize that. I am a good example of someone that needs to follow my own advice. Yeah, it's just, trying to create the supportive community that we can create so that people feel comfortable, when they're worried about feeling the shame of sharing their avalanche accidents, potential mistakes, because then it creates an environment where I think people, feel more comfortable with each other and ultimately make better decisions by learning from others. And so not a huge thing that I'm going to dwell on, but just something that I wanted to share with you guys. So I think that's probably all for now. I don't want this to go on too long. We've been going almost half an hour. Obviously, if you were here, we'd go a little longer, but yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to watch something like this on your own. So it'll be a manageable chunk of time, and just want to let you know, in this case, I'm speaking to the students from the January 21st, 24th plus season-long mentorship AST2 course. But I think the easiest way for me to share that with you guys and potentially others, I guess, is on my YouTube channel. So I'll upload this and then send you the link, and just let you know how much I really appreciate each of you and the energy that you brought to this AST2 course. Like I said, I am continually learning from students like yourselves. And, we're in this together, right? It's a lifelong process of learning more about avalanches, but also, learning about ourselves and how we manage risk, how we relate to other people when we're in a group, and finding that way to keep perspective, keep a discipline, really, of following a system to make our decisions. Because unfortunately, we're a little too fickle to rely on our own sort of whim and emotions. That can certainly work well, most of the time, but we're not perfect every day, and some days we're a little off, and sometimes our perspectives, our judgment might be off. So avalanche education in Canada has developed to the point where we kind of have stuff that we can rely on, and that's all within the daily process. The ability to look at a forecast and then look at the trip planner to come up with the right kind of terrain, simple, challenging, complex terrain for those conditions. And this is a really key part of what you guys have been learning in AST2 is delving into the avalanche problems, right? So like when we go into terrain and we're using the trip planner to choose simple, challenging, or complex terrain, if we're in the green, we've got a fair amount of buffer, and we maybe don't need to get to this more savvy look at deep diving into avalanche problems. But if we're traveling in the yellow part of that trip planner, that's where it's really crucial to look at avalanche problems. And that's really, sort of the crux, if you'll have it, of the AST2 course. And it's why I'm so glad that you guys signed up for this. And it's why, to tell you the truth, and, not to be judgmental or anything, but it perplexes me as to why so many people are keen to take the AST1 course, and yet they don't take the step to finish the AST by taking the AST2. And the AST2 is what helps us to really get into the understanding of avalanche problems and helps us to manage our behavior, our terrain selection in a year like this, when we have a trickier snowpack and we're needing to make decisions about, specifically what kind of terrain are we going to ski, even in moderate danger. A number of the avalanche accidents that happened this year were under moderate danger. And it wasn't that the forecasters blew the forecast. The danger was moderate. Remember, moderate danger is natural avalanches unlikely, and I don't think any of the avalanche fatalities this year were natural. They were all human triggered, but human triggered avalanches are possible in moderate danger. So what we need to do, and what we really focus on in AST2, is to help us to deep dive into that avalanche forecast so that we understand what the problems are, and then we know what kind of terrain to select in that moderate danger. So yeah, it's always interesting, and I'm so glad that we've been in this journey together. And please feel free to contact me, reach out to me, share stories, share questions. I hope we can continue the conversations. So thanks again. I really appreciate you guys, and we'll hopefully see you around.